Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. Chaim,
Amen.
welcome. Good Tavach, Shavua Tov. I just realized we're not set up here on the right audio. There. Can someone say something? No? Go ahead, Tim.
Something.
All right.
Say something.
Something's better than nothing. All right. Beautiful. All right. So, good Tavach, Shavua Tov, good week. Welcome, everybody. New week, new energy, new life. New life. So in Israel, they're talking about negotiations. Negotiations to free hostages. Is that a good thing or not a good thing? Well, so right. So we're not going to give something definitive, but we're going to at least discuss some of the issues. Okay. But it's a question. It's not so simple. Not so simple. Furthermore, in human relationships, are there times that we should just desist from engaging? And even more so, are there times when the conversation in our mind, the ping pong goes back and forth, seeing the argument like this, seeing the argument like that, and trying to figure out right from wrong, which path to take? When do I go through that and engage with the rationale that goes back and forth, seeing as they call the pros and the cons? Is there a time that maybe I don't do that? So, of course, everything we learn from the Parsha, living with the Parsha, means that the Parsha is alive in us. It answers personal questions. It answers all the questions, ultimately. So let's look at the Parsha. So in the last 2 weeks, the Jewish people have engaged in battles. They engaged against the Amorites, against Bashan. They defeated Sicha and Og in battles. Mighty nations. Comes this week, and Balak, who's the king of Moab, realizes, if I'm going to engage with the Israelites in conventional warfare, it doesn't look promising. There are mightier nations that have fallen, and pray tell, we will fall too. So they went to check out what is the uniqueness of this nation, in particular its leader. And they found out from Midian, because Moshe, when he was a young man, he fled from Midian and spent several decades there. So they kind of knew that those people knew the uniqueness of Moshe and the Jewish people. And what was that? Our power is not in the might of the sword, but our power is in our mouth, right? Our power is in our mouth, and particularly in prayer, right? And that goes back all the way. Hayadayim Yidei Esav. The hands are the hands of Esav. This was when Jacob was coming in to take the blessings of the firstborn. He was covered, and his father, who was blind, felt him and felt like the hands of Esav. And Esav, which represents the nations of the world, their might is in their hand with the sword. But the Kel Yaakov, but the voice is the voice of Jacob. And that's our distinctive qualitative edge, is in our voice, and our voice is heard on heaven, on high, through our prayers. So that's why they hire Bilam to go curse the Jews, fight fire with fire. You want to defeat them? Well, you got to fight their game. They know how to bless, so we got to find someone who knows how to curse. Right? Guess what? Didn't work. All the curses end up and transformed into blessings. Amazing blessings, which there's a whole discussion of its own. I mean, hours we can spend on it. The very beginning of davening every day is one of the blessings from Bilam. After we say the Adain Olam, we start V'mato ve'elecha, how goodly are your tents of the Jewish people. You can see it. Sorry. I mean, after Hareini, not after Adain Olam. After Hareini, accepting upon yourself the mitzvah to love a fellow as yourself. How goodly are the tents, O Jacob, and when dwell your dwelling places, O Israel. And that is, imagine, we start off our prayers with Bilam and his blessings transformed from curses into blessings. So it didn't work. So what's going to work against the Jewish people? Not true. It's going to work.
Oh, that's why Pinchas went in and did what he did.
But what's going to work?
Well, they enticed them with other things.
Sin is going to work. Get Jews to do bad. Get Jews to be sinful, and in particular with idolatry and adultery and so on. You know, that's good stuff to get them involved in. I mean, God, terrible things to get them involved in. But if you do, then that's how you're going to bring their downfall. In other words, our downfall is not anything external. It's not something outside of us. It's not by an arrow, not by the sword. It's not even by the curse of others, but it's our own selves that can bring on down ourselves. No one else can do that.
That's the word.
There is. We're not there yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This is a long
You like the PowerPoint better than me. I'm not insulted. I'm a big boy. I could take it. Just joking. I was just joking. Don't. So now we're getting into what the Parsha is going to tell us, right? And what it teaches us. Hold on. There we go there. Now that you mention it.
Bottom line is, it didn't work. We are here.
No, it did work. It didn't work to destroy us, but it worked to bring us down. Right? Amit, come here for a moment, please. How do I should just download this over here?
Yes. And then open it.
All right. Thank you for reminding me. No, seriously. I would have gotten there, but you know.
Close.
All right.
There we go.
Not yet. There you go. And now, there we go.
No,
for everyone.
Not this one, rather.
Not this one.
Sorry.
We're good? No.
not this one.
Okay, you come here, please. You take care of
Sorry.
this. Yes, but that's what I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good. All righty, wonderful. Okay. How do I make this larger? Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Can you read it up there? Yeah, wonderful. All right, from this week's Parsha, Israel was living in Shittim, and the people began to engage in lasciviousness with the daughters of Moab. They invited the people to the feast offering to their gods, and the people ate and they prostrated themselves to their gods. Israel became attached to Baal Peor and idolatry, and the wrath of God was inflamed against them. See, did something sinful. God said to Moses, "Take all the leaders of the people and hang those who sin before God, facing the sun, so that the inflamed wrath of God may withdraw from Israel." Moses said to the judges of Israel, "Each of you kill his man who have become attached to Baal Peor. Behold, one man of Israel came and brought a Midianite woman near to his brethren before the eyes of Moses and before the eyes of all of Israel, and they were weeping at the tent of meeting's door. Pinchas, the son of Elazar, son of Aaron the Kohen, saw, and he arose from the community and took a spear in his hand. Torah is not always PC, so hold on. He went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced both of them, the Israelite man and the woman, through their abdomen. The plague against Israel ceased. Those who died in the plague were 24,000. So here, Bilam couldn't do the work, but he said, "Here's an advice: get the princes, get the beautiful women of Moab and Midian to come and seduce the men, and through that to be engaged in idolatry." And Pinchas, with his swift judgment, stopped the plague through killing 2 people. Let's understand a little more of the details over here of what exactly is going on. So in the verse, it says over here, "Behold, one man came." Who's that one man? That was Zimri ben Salu, the head of the tribe of Shimei. The people in his tribe came to him and said, "Hey, where are you? Why aren't you standing up for us? We're being judged and we're being executed because of engaged with idolatry." By the way, execution is only when there's 2 witnesses, 2 kosher witnesses who warn the person before they commit idolatry, and they're cognizant of it, and people warn them, and they engaged in the idolatry, and therefore they were executed. So he said, "Do something. Don't sit there in silence." So Zimri is that one man. He came before Moshe, and the Talmud tells us the following. What did Zimri do? He arose, gathering 24,000 of Israel, and went to Cosbi, princess of Midian, and said to her, "Submit to me." She said to him, "I'm the daughter of a king, and so my father commanded me, submit only to the greatest of them." Who was the greatest of them is Moshe, right? He said to her, "I too am the head of a tribe. Moreover, I'm greater than Moses, than Moshe. As I am the second of the womb, a descendant of Shimon, the second son of Jacob, and Moshe is the third of the womb, the descendant of Levi, the third son of Jacob." Zimri seized her by her forelock, and brought her before Moshe. He said, "Son of Amram," referring to Moshe, "is this woman forbidden or permitted? And if you say that she is forbidden, who permitted the daughter of Jethro, Yisro, to you?" The halacha eluded Moshe. Oh, missing that? Sorry. Okay. all the leaders bawled in their weeping, and this explains that which is written. And they wept at the tent of meetings, and it is written thereafter. And Pinchas, the son of Elazar, saw, and so on. So, what was Zimri's tactic? Right, he was taking this Midianite woman, right, and am I allowed to have a relationship with her? Right. Well, it says if you say no, then who allowed you to marry the daughter of Yisrael, who wasn't Jewish, right? And because of that, you're acting now. Thank you. You're acting and judging all the people. What gives you the right to judge them when you yourself have failed in that, right? And what happens? Moshe doesn't respond. Why wouldn't he respond? What is it that he didn't respond? And as a result of that, the people are crying around him. What was his defense? So Rashi explains to us. Hello.
What does Rashi say?
So Rashi here in 2b, who permitted the daughter of Jethro to you? Moses married before Mount Sinai, and when the Torah was given, they were all non-Jews who entered into the general framework of mitzvahs together. Tzipporah entered with them, as did many converts from the mixed multitude. So it's true Tzipporah wasn't born Jewish, but in a sense, either was Moshe. Because before the giving of the Torah, definition of being Jewish was simply that you were part of the tribe, you believed in God, and you had an affinity to the tribe, right? What happened in Mount Sinai? Who converted? Everybody converted, including Moshe, even though his mother was Jewish, but the Jewishness was not something of soul, it was something of belief and of tribalism, if you will, like any other nation was tribalism. So that's what it was before the giving of the Torah. But at the giving of the Torah, now what defined you as a Jew is you have a Jewish soul. So who got a Jewish soul in Mount Sinai? Moshe got one, Tzipporah got one, and everybody got one, right? Cosby, who was the Midianite princess, doesn't have one. Why? She wasn't at Mount Sinai, and she didn't convert. She wasn't at Mount Sinai, and she didn't convert, so she doesn't have a Jewish soul, right?
Well, Ruth also wasn't at Mount Sinai, but she could.
All right, well, let's stay on the topic over here. Let's stay on the topic over here. But first of all, she did convert. Ruth did convert. She converted. Okay, good, but there's a process after. But there's the process afterwards. Zimri is making a claim against Moshe. You married a non-Jew, right? What's his response? No, I didn't. I married a Jew. She converted in Mount Sinai, as everybody converted in Mount Sinai. Even he did, even though he had Jewish lineage. But now the definition of Jewishness changed at Mount Sinai, right, with the giving of the Torah. So this raises two questions. One is that Zimri knew this. He knew that Tzipporah was Jewish, right? And secondly is, why didn't Moshe answer this? A simple answer. And not only why didn't he answer? If he would have answered it, maybe it would have brought him back to his senses and he would have done tshuva. How do we understand this, right? He should have at least have answered Zimri. He could have said halacha came into force when Torah was given, or I converted her. Then perhaps Zimri would have responded, returned in tshuva, and God accepts all returnees. But he doesn't do that. How do we understand that? So let's go a little deeper. The truth is, Zimri's question was a little more complex than that, right? It wasn't literally about the fact that she wasn't Jewish. Question really on a deeper level is, that Moshe had a law of being a kohen.
Oh,
Why did he have a law of being a kohen? Actually, even had more of a law than being a kohen. He had a law, right? A law of being a kohen. Why did he have a law of being a kohen? Anybody?
this was supposed to be the first time until he said no to Shem too often, and then he lost it to Aaron.
No, it was never to be a no. But the he did the pre-inauguration of the Mishkan and of the altar beforehand, and he acted like a kohen and a kohen gadol. He acted in that manner, right? And therefore, and he never lost the status, if you will, right? So as a result, the halacha is right. A woman who, this is from Rambam, a woman who converted or is freed from slavery, even if she converted or is freed when she was under the age of 3, being that she is not a daughter of an Israel, she is forbidden to marry a kohen, right? And he didn't lose that status, right? So, if that's the case, why is he married to her? Mm-hmm. So the halacha is, first of all, the halacha is, when did he become a kohen?
But when he's already in the desert with Mishka.
Right. In other words, was he always a kohen? No. When he was married to Tzipporah, was he a kohen? No. So once you are married and you become, right, it's like a kohen who becomes a kohen gadol. So he can't marry a widow, a kohen gadol, a high priest. But what if he was a kohen and he was married to a widow and he becomes a kohen gadol? He's allowed to keep his wife. Once he's a kohen gadol, he can't marry a widow. But as a kohen can, a regular kohen can, right? So the same idea here with Moshe. He was married to Tzipporah already, so he can keep her, even though he gained the status of being a kohen and a kohen gadol, right?
Subsequent.
Right, exactly. This is what his argument was to him. Well, if that's the case, if you could marry somebody that you're not allowed to, right? His argument, you have this status of being a kohen and you're marrying someone who you're not allowed to. If you can do that, then why can't we do that? The answer is because there's a difference, because I was married to her before and I only gained the status afterwards, so therefore I'm allowed to. But we have the same problem over here. It's one thing that Zimri didn't know that finer law, and maybe he was confused, but Moshe knows this. Why doesn't he respond? Why doesn't he say so? That's the question.
Cohen
It-
marries the widow, even though they're not allowed, but if the Cohen marries a widow, he loses his status as a Cohen.
no, a Cohen can marry a widow. He can marry a divorcee. Can't marry a divorcee.
Okay, divorce, okay.
Right.
But if he does that, then
Right. He loses his status.
his
Yeah.
status.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So So again, let's go back here for a moment to make sure we have a clarity. So the Zimri has a question, but Moshe has an answer. There's an answer. There's a halachic answer to this. Why did he not respond? And as we learned earlier, if he would have responded, that might have brought him back to do tshuva. And who knows how many lives that could have saved also, right? Perhaps. So in this week's Sikha, the Rebbe says the following. We do not always seek to answer the questions of others. Sometimes their question can be so impertinent as to make the Midianite seem permitted. When the other person honestly intends for the sake of heaven, we must answer even a fool according to their foolishness. But if the other person poses a question in Torah terms with the intention of permitting what the Torah forbids, we must take the approach of do not answer a fool according to their foolishness. Victory is achieved over such an opponent not by engaging in rational debate, but by displaying logic-defying strength. So in a perfect world, anybody that asks a question deserves an answer, right? But if someone is using the Torah itself as a tool to just find a route for them, permission for them, and not only just for them, but trying to show it in a public arena that they are justified in their ways, then that's a different story, right? That's a person, what we call in bad faith. It's not honest. It's honest would be if you actually ask something from the Torah, and to you, this is what it seems to say, but then you can answer that. But if it's not, you're not looking for an honest answer, you're just looking for a way to justify whatever it is you want to justify, then there's nothing to discuss with such a person because there's no honesty there. It's just a smoke screen. You're just trying to weaken the person that you're asking in their conviction and to permit yourself in the ways that are sinful. Therefore, the only decent response is display strength. Strength by saying nothing. As the saying goes, so says silence to the fool. Here's your answer. By saying nothing, right? There's a temptation to answer, but what happens is you get sucked in. You get sucked in, and instead what you do is create a mirage that gives those who are listening a perception that, there's two sides here. And this is what King Solomon says in the book of Proverbs that the Rebbe quoted. Do not answer a fool according to his or her folly, lest you become like them. But now he says, answer a fool according to their folly, lest they be wise in their sight. So sages had a little difficulty because there's obviously a contradiction, one verse after the other, right? So what does it mean? The Talmud tells us they sought to suppress the book of Proverbs because of the statement that contradict each other. Like, well, what's going on here? What are you saying? Right? But then they understood that the statements that contradict one another is written, answer a fool according to their folly, answer not a fool according to their folly, and is written, answer a fool according to their folly. Right? And as Rashi explains, the idea contained in these two verses is explicit within them. Do not answer him or her in a manner where answering will only bring you down to their level. But answer a fool in a matter where, if you do not answer them, they will be wise in their own eyes, right? And in other words, they think that they have the answer because you're not answering. So therefore, you need to answer. In other words, the person who is being dishonest, he thinks he's wise in his own eyes, and it doesn't matter what you're going to say, right? But the person who's honest, because you don't answer, they're going to think, oh, well, I guess I'm right because you don't have an answer for me, right? But because they're seeking an answer. Whereas in the first instance, don't answer because you're going to bring down to their level because they're not looking for the answer because the answer is not what they're looking for. They're looking to bring you down because you answer. That's the distinction over here, right?
Well, the one who's asking the question kind of wins both ways.
No.
Because if the question is being asked and person answers, so that person
1
is
second.
being brought down.
Is
to
that
the
person,
fullest-
1 second. You have to know who's that person asking. Are they being sincere in asking their question? Or are they just manipulating in order to bring you down with them?
How do you know?
Ah, okay. That's a different question.
So
That's a good, no, that's a valid question. That's a very valid question. Well, you see, King Solomon put one next to the other, and they almost sounded the same. And that's why the sages, this is my own insight right now. I don't know if this is true, but I didn't understand why the sages said they wanted to kind of, squelch the book because, what kind of contradiction is over here. But and I'm getting it. Um, there's a story with the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Shalom Dov Ber. He went to a museum and he was looking at a painting of a battle, a scene of a battle, and he was looking very intently at the picture. And finally, his chassid that was there with him says, "Rebbe, what are you seeing over here? Like, what's so enthralled he seemed to be?" Says, "I'm trying to distinguish the difference between self-sacrifice and foolishness. Self-sacrifice that a person would give up their lives in a battle to fight, or someone who foolishly is fighting the battle and ready to give up their life." Said they're worlds apart, the two, but the distinction is a hairbreadth of a difference. You hear that? Hairbreadth of a difference to distinguish. They're worlds apart, right? They're worlds apart. And I'm going to get back to that later. Remind me this. I bring that up now because of your question. So you're right. How do you know the difference? Sometimes it may be a hairbreadth of a difference. It may not be so obvious. In the case of Zimri, it was very obvious. He was interested in bringing down Moshe. He wasn't interested in an authentic, real answer. He didn't want that. He just wanted to have his cake and eat it too, as the old saying goes, right? He wanted to have what he wanted to have, right? And not just for himself. He's even a holy man. Look how holy he is. He's doing it on behalf of his whole tribe. He's doing all of this. So he feels like very self-righteous in what he is doing, right? In questioning Moshe and in the act what he did with her. Right. He felt very justified because he's self-righteous in what he's doing to save his people. And you might look at it that way, and in the hairbreadth of a difference, might be a hairbreadth of a difference, but it's discernible that he was only looking not to do what's right. He's only doing what he wants and what is, driving him in his own lust. right? And the lust of the people that are together with him, period. And that's what's driving him. To be aware of that and to discern that may be very subtle. But the reality is it's two worlds apart, right? Just as real self-sacrifice and foolishness and folly, which I'll bring up later more about that notion, right? So these are the two categories, right? So you can tell by the way the person's asking, are you using this as a tool to discredit? Or are you asking this because you really want to have an answer? You can usually tell in a person, are they sincere or they're not sincere, right? So if they're sincere, then King Solomon said, you got to answer them because otherwise they're going to think what their notion is wise. And you need to set the record straight for them and help them out, right? But then if there's the individual who just wants to bring you down, is not interested in the answer, but just wants to, get down and dirty. So when you fight with a dirty person, you get dirty. You're brought down by them. So the response to such an individual is nothing. Just shy silence. Yeah. Show inner strength. And that takes inner strength because we have we have a need to feel self-justified. And sometimes we want to justify ourselves in the eyes of others. And that's what leads us. And that it's also a folly then. Because then you're not answering the person, you're just answering, so you should be justified, right? And that itself is also not good. You don't need to justify yourself if you're a good person, right? Now, if it's done in the public view, and there is an individual here who's asking a question, and now the public will be swayed in a wrong manner. So then you might have a duty. But in this instance over here, no, there's nothing. The answer would not have brought him back in tshuva because he wasn't being straightforward and honest and seeking truth. So you don't answer such an individual. So now, so that's how you deal with another individual. How about with yourself, right? It's the same thing, right? Meaning, sometimes we have a discussion in our head between the right thing and the wrong thing. In other words,
Give an example.
someone said to you something not so nice. And, whatever, they were in whatever kind of situation, right? They were in a tight squeeze and they said something to you off the cuff, not nice. And you responded, right? In an unpleasant manner to that individual. You said something unpleasant. Now forget about whether that person's right or wrong, right? You did something, you responded based on them, which that itself is wrong, right? You don't respond to someone else's anger. You don't respond to someone else's, negativity. You respond the way you are appropriately need to respond, right? Right? Not reactionary, but what is the response in this person's, anxiety in the moment? In this person's whatever. I'm not going to give. Just the person said to you something, and you responded. You shot back, right? And it was wrong, right? So now you're going back in your head and you're thinking about it. And what do you do? So on the one hand, well, it was wrong. Yeah, but on the other hand, if he or she wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't have responded that way, right? Is that honest? Is it?
So this.
No, it's dishonest. It's dishonest. It's dishonest. It's a way that to make me not a owner of my life. You own my life because you said something, and because you own my life, that's why I responded. Well, that means you're a slave. If you're a slave, so you could say that. But if you're a free person, it means you're free to respond the way you should respond, right? So, in other words, you're not responding to, you're not responding to them, but you're to their negativity. You have to respond to whatever is the appropriate way that you should respond, and you have to own that and be responsible for that. But you have in your head that tells you why, because you want to survive, and you don't want to feel bad about yourself, and that in the ping pong match is telling you, well, for survival's sake, I got to point the finger at you because you made me do it, because you said such and such, right? So if you recognize that that's just for your survival, right? Just like that person might have said whatever they did, but that's their life that they have to deal with. I have to deal with my life, right? So if I recognize, then I recognize that that argument is a bogus argument and I should not be making it, right? I'm only doing it not because I want to come to the truth. I'm only doing it so I can survive and not feel bad about myself and not take responsibility for what I did. When I recognize that, you know what you do? You stand strong against yourself and say you don't accept it. Right? You don't accept that, and you own your own life. And whatever you did, even if the person did something worse than you did, it's irrelevant to you owning your life, because that'll be another argument that you will make in the ping pong match. Okay? That you make, yeah, but I only did a slight, nasty thing, and he or she 80%, I did 20%. We've got the 80-20 rule over here. The 80, take care of your, right? We all do that. We all do that. So in other words, I'm still a slave to you because you owe me 80%. I owe myself 20%. That is a bogus argument, right? But we all do it, right? We all do it, Yes, so I'll say I'm sorry if the 80% will say they're sorry first. So in other words, again, you're owning my life. I don't own my own life. That notion is a false argument. It's only for survival. You want your animal instinct to survive. You don't want to have honesty and to recognize that, hey, what I did was wrong. Now, whether the other person owns their stuff or doesn't own, that's their responsibility. That's between them and God. But between me and God, I've got to own my stuff 100%, not 20%, not 80%. But if it's only 20%, that 20%, I have to own 100%, irrespective of the other individual, right? Which means I have to stand firm to myself and say no, and be silent and not listen to that argument that comes my way.
So
right?
this process, so this double thinking.
Well, it's the ping pong because we have two sides in us. We have two sides. We have our higher self, right? And we have our lower self. Our lower self is very self-directed, very seeking literally survival. Affirmation is part of survival, right? I need affirmation for survival, right? So I need to affirm myself to myself so I can feel that I can survive, right? But who's surviving here? Your animal instinct you're allowing to survive rather than your higher self. So if that's life by you, so that's how you're going to lead your life. But that's not real honesty of who and what you are. when you recognize after learning Tanya, right, that you got a godly soul and you have an animal soul, and you know the difference between the two. So you know who's talking to you, in you, right? That's why Tanya begins chapter 1 already about the animal soul, chapters 2 through 5 about the godly soul and understanding the makeup of the godly soul, chapters 6 through 8, understanding the animal soul from within, right? And when we, why is Tanya start that way? Because, well, we're going to have a battle from within, and that's a healthy person, that you have a battle from within, right? Because without any kind of internal battle, it means either we're completely righteous, which is not happening to us, or we're completely wicked because we're just following our instincts. And that's a completely wicked individual. Doesn't mean wicked doesn't mean here that you are, you're a sharpshooter who aims at somebody to shoot them, right? That's not what it means. It means that you just follow whatever is pleasing to you and whatever, rather than what might be pleasing to God. Now, sometimes it might coincide, but you do it for what's the pleasure, what life brings pleasure to you. So, but when we evolve and we recognize that there is a battle and we recognize the two sides over here, so we need to know which fool do we answer. Sometimes you need to answer the fool in me because you got to educate it. So, for example, the fool in you, when you educate, says, you know what? I recognize you, right? You're the fool in me, trying to fool me. So sometimes you can educate it and tell you know what? You educate it by giving it a notion of that it's good for it not to just seek survival, right? So you can educate it, but sometimes it's just trying to fool you. So don't allow it to fool you and just say no to it, period. So, for example, a negative thought comes to your mind of a loved one, right? Or you have an illicit thought of someone, right? So I mean, that's easier. Illicit thought, you just push away because you can't entertain it. But a negative thought about a person, of a loved one, you might think, well, that because that person, they've got real issues and they're really this and that. But why am I thinking that? So if I discern, I'm thinking that because I want to feel good about myself and I'm not like them. So then that's a thought not to entertain. If it's a thought that came to me because, you know what, that person needs me to help them, right? To maybe fix something and maybe I can inspire them. So then that's why the negative thought, oh, okay. So then that will lead to something good. So we need to know where is it coming from? What is it a result of? And therefore, whether to push it away or to engage in it. So that's what King Solomon said. So when it comes to someone like Zimri, right, it's very clear what the intent is. It's just to bring you down. A negative thought, of an illicit thought of someone, right? That's obvious. It's only going to bring you down. A negative thought about a loved one, it might not be so clear, it might not be so obvious. So we got to know what's causing that. Where am I going with that? And if we have that honesty, then we'll know if it's something that I should, entertain, answer the question, or just push it away and be silent and just don't let that it doesn't exist. Is that clear? So finally, how should Israel deal with what's going on? Well, I'll give you an answer. The answer was from the Camp David Accords with President Carter and Menachem Begin in 1978. Although that itself was a failure. I'll explain that in a moment.
That was all Arafat's row.
This is before Arafat. before this is, no, we're talking about, this is Anwar Sadat. 1978 Camp David, that was Anwar Sadat. With Jimmy Carter and Menachem Begin. No, that's, yeah. Yeah, no, that's 93. Or, and yeah, whatever, 90. So in any case, so Jimmy Carter takes aside Menachem Begin and says, we need to talk about Jerusalem. So Menachem Begin says, Jerusalem's not for.
What?
We need to talk about Jerusalem.
Yeah.
What the status, right?
What does Begin say?
Jimmy Carter says we
Yeah,
need to talk
we
about
don't-
Jerusalem,
about
right? Right.
What did Begin respond?
So we're not going to talk about
It's
Jerusalem.
it's a non-subject.
Right. We're not going to talk about it, right? That's what he says. He says, well, we'll only talk about it. Don't worry, won't be. You'll just talk. He says, no. There's nothing even, forget about negotiation. There's not even what to talk about. Jerusalem is our eternal capital, right? There's nothing what to, forget about negotiate, even to talk about. Because once you start to talk about it, what happens? It's a slippery slope until you start negotiating about it. And then you start to give up, give away as a result. The Rebbe was one step more than that. The Rebbe was very, didn't want that Sinai should be given back at all. Nothing. There's not what to talk about. Why? Not because Jerusalem is our eternal capital. To the Rebbe, there was something more dear than Jerusalem. What's more dear than Jerusalem? Jewish people, exactly, are much more dear than Jerusalem. To the Rebbe, if one Jew should lose their life to have Jerusalem, it's not worth it. You know that? Not worth it. Stones are wonderful, that they're holy stones, but they're not as holy as a Jew. Right? Now, we have Jerusalem, and on the contrary, we have to keep it. There's not a question, but not because of the holiness of Jerusalem. It's not because it's our eternal capital, but for the same reason why Sinai should not have been given back, is because we need security for our people's sake, that they should be in secure borders. And the larger the border, the greater the security. The greater you show strength, the greater the security. And as the Rebbe said, show great strength and be very formidable strength, that the enemy will be frightened and won't start up with you. But when you start to talk, you show weakness. And in I think it was Madrid talks were in Madrid talks led to 1993 to giving led to the Oslo Accords, right? It was the Madrid talks came before that. I don't know if it was 18. I think it was maybe 89 was the Madrid talks, if I recall now. And there was a minister. What's the name of the minister? It'll come to me. Came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said that if you continue with the talks will lead to negotiations and which in the end, of course, that's what it did. I mean, everything fell through, but it will lead to that. The fact that you talk, that itself is the beginning of the end. There's nothing what to talk to. There's nothing to talk about. And if you do, the Rebbe said, I'll bring down the government. Which in the end, actually, he did in 1990, because it was by one vote. There was a chassid of the Rebbe voted against the government. It actually brought down the government as a result. Anyway, whatever. That's a piece of history. The important point over here is, with evil, you don't negotiate. You don't talk with evil doers. There's nothing to negotiate. There's nothing to talk about. Let it go and negotiate. Now, you could give your demands. You can make the statements, but not as a talk or a negotiation, right? we will do such and such. We get back our hostages. This is what we will do. And that's it. Finished. Unfortunately, Hamas does that and we don't. We go ping pong. There's no ping pong with something that's evil. Zimri was evil. Moshe doesn't respond to his evil argument. He doesn't respond to it. We don't respond to our evil arguments inside of us. We don't respond to someone else's negativity. We have to own our lives and respond the way that's appropriate, whether it's no response or this, whatever it is, right? We respond based on us, not based on a negotiation, not based on any discussion. Because when you discuss with evildoers, you give some form of recognition to them, period. And that doesn't mean you can't say that this is what we're ready to do, but we're not negotiating, with them. I mean, not that they're really negotiating with them, it's with the others, Qatar and others, but, they're kind of all the same. It's all the same. Just one's, cleaner, one's dirtier, because of being in the tunnel, and one's just wearing a nice suit or, a nice Arab garb, but it's not really that much of a difference. So this is, right now, this is a very broad general idea of what it means, right? But that's what comes up from this week's Torah portion, and crucial for all of us. Hey, what's going on in here? Sharon Schmerer is, where are you, Sharon? I see you're over here. All right, any questions, any comments? Sharon, show your video.
Yeah, I don't know how, Rabbi. I'm grocery shopping now. I don't.
All right.
If I knew, I would. Here, video. No, so I'm pressing on it. It's not working. I'm sorry. Anyway, you know what I look like. So I just want to say that I had a very miserable experience with a girlfriend all afternoon, and I didn't answer. Even though I wanted to say so much, I didn't. And here you are, you're touching upon the point that you're supposed to keep quiet. And I feel like you hear my thoughts. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Look at that. You're following the parsha.
But I just want to know, are you sure? I just want to know, Rabbi, are you sure I wasn't supposed to say anything in defense of myself? Because she was appalling.
Wow.
Remember, your response is not based on not reactionary to her. The important thing, Sharon, is that you're not reactionary to her, but you are responding the way Hashem wants you to respond. Now,
which
sometimes
means to say nothing.
Right? Maybe that would be nothing. Exactly. Maybe there's sometimes, like Moshe Rabbeinu said nothing, and that nothing might be the strongest thing that you could do, because
it would have exploded. It would have
it might get that person to think maybe not, but you didn't buy in and come down to their level. That's what's important.
Sometimes
right?
silence is more than.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you for that.
All right. Anybody else? 1 second. Huh? Yes.
Whoops.
Mr. B?
He looks like Mr. Bean, the guy down there.
Oh, Mr. B.
The comedian,
Over here. Maybe it is. All right. All right, folks. We're good.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. God bless you all.
Oh, I got it. Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right, Sharon.
Sorry I wasn't with you all. Believe me, very sorry. Very, very sorry.
Well, next week you can just turn things around.
I will. Thank you.
Be well. Okay, folks. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank
Have a good evening.